Listen, don't bully your classmates if you don't want a zombie apocalypse to happen in your school. Are dead. Episode 1. All of Us Are Dead starts off with a punch opening with a whole bunch of high schoolers on a rooftop beating up a kid, Jin-soo, who has ran into some trouble with school bullies. The bullies beat him black and blue and even go as far as breaking some bones. All of a sudden, after being left in the ground to fend for himself, Jin-soo full-on hulks up as adrenaline takes over as if he hadn't been kicked and punched just a few seconds ago by his main bully, Guinam. He tries to put up a fight, but unfortunately the bullies move away and Jin-soo falls from the roof as the bad guys just watch, not really shocked by what just happened, and walk away. We then cut to a hospital as Mr. Lee, a high school science teacher who happens to be Jin-soo's dad, arrives to check up on his badly beaten but should be dead son. Much to everyone's surprise, Jin-soo seems to be okay considering everything he just went through. Jin-soo starts becoming lethargic and attempts to bite his own father as he succumbs to a zombie transformation. Realizing his face can't be reversed, Mr. Lee picks up a Bible and beats his own son with it, hoping to end his zombified persona. Mr. Lee then packs his son inside a suitcase, planning to bury him. However, he gets quite a bit of a scare when Jin-soo's arms pops out of the suitcase, ready to consume his dad's brains. And then, boom! Cue the intro. Let's flash forward a bit of time as we enter a fancy high school where Mr. Lee works at. There, she enters Mr. Lee's empty laboratory and notices a covered box. Deciding to check it, she encounters a tiny rat and is actually rather friendly with it, unlike how she treats her peers. The rat then begins to behave erratically and violently, biting the girl's fingers in the process. Mr. Lee catches her red-handed and is aware that what follows is anything but pretty, so he does the next logical thing: lock her inside the lab and keep her away from humans at all costs. After this happens, we are introduced to our main characters, Jong-sun, An-jo, two students who live in the same apartment complex, Isok, An-jo's best friend, Gwang-soo, Jong-sun's best friend, and Soo-hyuk, the school's heartthrob and protector of bullied students, even though he himself was a bully once upon a time. Oh, and he's also An-jo's crush. The bullies, led by Guinam, have also landed themselves a brand new victim, a girl named Yoon-ji, who is forced to undress as they record, humiliating her to unparalleled extents. Meanwhile, An-jo tells Seo-hyuk that she has a crush on him, but he doesn't seem too interested, not even bothering to give her an answer to her declaration. Ouch. The day after the hamster bites the girl, let's call her Patient Zero. The school's teacher, Mrs. Park, notices Patient Zero is absent and asks the students if anyone has heard of her. As you might expect, no one has. All the while, Mr. Lee does his best to keep her hidden and continuously sedates her, trying to keep her zombie-like symptoms at the minimum. As it turns out, he didn't do too much of a good job at keeping her restrained, as she is quick to escape once she was out of his sight, entering the teacher's classroom all beaten up and looking seriously ill. Patient Zero explains that Mr. Lee has kept her locked and is the one that did this to her. The students then hurriedly carry her into the infirmary, where another girl with a severe tummy ache was expecting to be attended, but clearly she isn't the main priority at the moment. Patient Zero starts showing the lethargic symptoms we all know too well and then bites the nurse before getting rushed to the hospital. The teachers then confront Mr. Lee about what happened to Patient Zero, unaware of the chaos that's going on at the school at the moment. He explains that she needs to be quarantined but gets arrested by local police. Oh boy. As this is happening, the nurse starts showing the same symptoms Patient Zero did and grabs a hold of one of the students, chewing his face off and immediately infecting him. What follows is a whole parade of infected students trying to bite humans as they do their very best to keep away from them. It's absolute mayhem. There's blood and zombies everywhere, and it seems to get harder to get away from them by the minute. The episode ends with a zombie student getting ready to sink his teeth in An-jo. Episode 2. In case you were wondering, An-jo doesn't get bitten by the zombie and is rescued by Jong-sun. Thank God. As you can imagine, this episode is more about students running for their lives, trying to avoid getting bit by a zombie, and the strategies they come up with to do exactly that. This episode starts us off with students running around the entire school as they do their very best to stay alive and get away from zombies. However, the zombie infection has spread insanely fast and the undead are just about flooding the entire school. Jong-sun, Soo-hyuk, Isok, Gwang-soo, and An-jo have been caught in the midst of the whole chaos in the cafeteria and are trying to find a way out of the horde. Luckily, they managed to land inside a classroom filled with other students that have not yet been infected, gladly welcoming anyone that doesn't pose a threat to their safety. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee is being held in custody for questioning as Jae-ik, a detective, tries to figure out why he locked up Patient Zero. He doesn't explain his motives to Jae-ik, but it is rather obvious to us viewers. He wanted to avoid a zombie apocalypse, and rightfully so. We then get a flashback of an experiment Mr. Lee conducted on some rats and their chemical responses when confronted against a scary scenario, observing that they fight back instead of cowering in fear. He extracted this hormone and administered it to his son in the hopes that he too would be able to fight back. Well, Jinsu turned into a merciless killing machine, infecting his mother and died. I suppose that wasn't a great idea, Mr. Lee. Now, remember how patient Zero got taken to a hospital? She goes full-on zombie mode there, infecting anyone that crosses her path. Right. As this is happening, the uninfected group of students is desperately calling 911, but given the nature of the situation, the dispatchers assume it's a prank and decide to ignore the calls. To make matters worse, a teacher that looked healthy joined them, but turned out to be a zombie, leading them to leave their haven and search for another one. They fight through a sea of zombies, but manage to find a relatively safe location for the time being. However, Soo-hyuk is nowhere to be found. There's some other activity going on other than our main character's hiding spot, like another group of students who are hiding in the bathroom but encounter yet another zombie. They try to kill it but fail on their first attempt. Luckily, a member of the school's archery team was there to save the day and is able to kill the zombified girl with just one arrow. Cool! Later, the teacher, Miss Park, does an emergency announcement and does her very best to remain calm as she encourages students to stay alive. We make a quick visit over to Soo-hyuk, who is now fighting zombies on his own like a badass and is actually alive and well. Phew! We then cut back to these students where Anjo's best friend Aisok tries to ease her worries about not knowing the whereabouts of her crush, Soo-hyuk. In an effort to show her support, Aisok grabs Anjo's hand, but something is off. Her hands are a little too cold. It doesn't take them more than a second to realize that in the midst of all the chaos, Aisok had been bitten. The group realizes they need to either kill her or kick her out, but Anjo struggles making the call. Chang-san steps in and kicks her out the window as Anjo tries to save her, but realizes there's no point and ultimately watches her friend fall to a death. Noticing there's a fire hose they can use to their favor, the group then ties Little Knot so they can rappel down the window and enter a safer area. Seeing as the zombies were about to break in, each student begins rappelling down the window and into another classroom, landing right where Miss Park is located. After Anjo goes down, it's Chang-san's turn to rappel, but just as he does so, the zombies break into the classroom and throw themselves down the window, leaving us to wonder what Chang-san's fate could be. Episode 3. This episode opens up with Mr. Lee being interrogated by Jae-ik yet again as another officer bursts in and lets them know that the virus has spread outside of the high school. In a rather stoic manner, Mr. Lee hopelessly says they were all doomed and gives us the iconic title drop. Now, let's shift our focus and refresh your memory a little. Remember that one student who had a tummy ache when patient 0 entered the infirmary? Well, she's actually quite pregnant and about to give birth. Yeah. That isn't all that great, is it? Luckily for her, she left the school before things got out of hand and has given birth in the middle of a park, but abandons the baby right after. Ouch. Let's pause that storyline for a little and cut back to the students hiding with Miss Park. I say it's right about time we introduce them. No? We have Nam-ra, the class president, Hya-roon, Ji-min, Dae-soo, Woo-jin, Jun-yeon, Gwin-soo, who had a tough upbringing, Na-yeon, a girl born with a golden spoon, and Anjo, who's still waiting for Chang-soo and Soo-hyuk to come back, seeing as Chang-san had been thrown out the window and Soo-hyuk is nowhere to be found. Thankfully, it doesn't take much longer before they both find their paths back together while they climb their way to safety. That's right, Chang-san and Soo-hyuk have found their way back to the group. Thank goodness. Anyway, there's quite a bit of tension amongst the group, particularly between Gwam-soo and Na-yeon, who are constantly throwing shade at one another. At times, it gets a little too intense. But I'll tell you right now, you are truly going to end up hating this girl right here. All of a sudden, a horde of zombies breaks into the safe room through the window as the boys from the group fight them off. After the fight is over, Na-yeon accuses Gwam-soo of being infected due to his bloody nose and has a bit of a scratch. But he assures them he isn't. Meanwhile, the girl who has just given birth is walking around Hyosan, the city we're in, and encounters absolute madness as infected people seem to be all around as she runs away from the zombies. As this is happening, Hyosan paramedics are trying to figure out what causes the virus and how to stop it, keeping one of the zombies in restraints to avoid getting infected. As luck may have it, he bites one of the paramedics and infects him, leading the others to put him in restraints as well. We then come back to our leading group of students as they try to figure out what to do with Gwang-soo and possibility of him being infected. They decide to lock him inside a recording room inside the classroom, and he vows to stay there for an hour, which is a lot longer than necessary for symptoms to start showing up. In an effort to cheer him up during his longer than necessary quarantine, Chang-san does silly faces and they whistle a song with the door as their only barrier. Seeing as Gwang-soo won't leave the recording room, the teacher and the other students force Na-yeon to apologize to him. Basically, with no other choice, Na-yeon brings a handkerchief along with her and cleans Gwang-soo's wound while she insults and berates him due to his low economic status behind closed doors. This sends Guangsu to the limit, and he pushes Na Yun, leaving the recording studio and letting his peers know of when she just did. News about the incoming zombie apocalypse in Hyo-sun starts breaking out as uninfected citizens are forced to evacuate the city. As you might imagine, the Hyo-sun High doesn't really have the option to just leave and fight the cat with zombies all around. Nighttime rolls around and Na Yong, still despising Guangsu, is glad to admit that she was right after all when his nose begins to bleed and his eyes turn red. Realizing that he has turned, Guangsu panics and promises to leave without making too much of a fuss. His zombified persona takes over and he starts attacking his crying friends, but Chung-sun whistles the same song he get in the recording room and manages to get his attention as he falls out of the window. As this is happening, the girl that just had her baby is running amidst a chaotic Hyo-sun, doing her best to avoid anyone that comes her way as she decides to rescue her baby back from the park from starving zombies. She breaks into an empty restaurant along with her child as she notices that she too has been bit. In order to keep the baby safe, she restrains herself as she succumbs to her new zombie state of being. We cut to the paramedics, who are now joined by a member of the National Assembly, as they are told they have to wait with the zombies for a while longer before they can send a rescue helicopter. The lady from the National Assembly is offended and asks that they told the rescue team that she was with them, clearly establishing that her life is worth more than the others. One of the paramedics, who is also Anjo's dad, tries his hardest to figure out any information released about the well-being of the students, but he gets no response. Once again, we cut back to the students as the class president Nam Ra tells Mi Yan that she knows what she did. She proceeds of accusing Na Yan of staining her handkerchief with zombie blood to clean Guangsu's scratch, which makes sense seeing as how long his symptoms took to show up. Initially, Na Yan denies everything, but then admits it, acknowledging that she killed Guangsu. She leaves the room, planning to kill herself with the zombies, but Miss Park follows after her in the hopes of saving her, but not before telling the rest of the students to stay alive and to not cause anyone to die. Episode 4. This episode sets us off different than the rest. A live streamer records himself entering Hyo-sun in hopes of checking out if the place has truly turned him to Zombieland. Of course, this proves to be a terrible decision, when only a couple of hours later the guy is struggling to survive and avoid the zombies at every corner. We get to see Chung-sun's mom nearby, who is doing her best to stay alive and get her son back from school, which will also prove not to be a great idea when she finally arrives at her son's location and gets bitten by Guangsu, Chung-sun's former best friend. Grim, huh? We then cut on over to our main group of students who are speculating if Miss Park and Yaryan are still alive, seeing as they haven't heard any screaming just yet. However, this subject turns out to be irrelevant when one of the students confesses he needs to go to the bathroom, which leads the rest of the group admitting to be in the same situation. Luckily for them, Anjo's firefighter dad showed her how to build a toilet from scratch, and well, they make their very own DIY toilet. They discuss the possibility of leaving the classroom, but quickly shut it down, realizing that it is still too soon to make a decision. Now, we make a quick stop over to Min Yoon-ji, the girl Guinam decided to make his new victim. Remember? See, Min Yoon-ji was about to jump off the building to end her suffering, but just as she was about to, zombies started falling out the windows, which of course made her change her mind. Now she's stuck with Chul-soo, a guy who has a crush on her. As this is happening, Green Nam is mercilessly killing zombies left and right, almost sociopathically. Anjo's dad, who is isolated along with the paramedics and the lady from the National Assembly, tries to leave the room and get to his daughter, but is convinced otherwise. We cut over to the group in the bathroom, plotting to leave the haven at some point, but things grow tense and violent when the two girls, Ha-ri and Mi-jim, disagree with one another, leading to a fight between the two. Meanwhile, Jae-it is shocked over the news of the zombie apocalypse as Mr. Lee retells the story of how he started the virus. After finding out that Jim-soo tried to off himself due to the intense bullying and getting ignored after reporting violence, he realized that neither he nor his son can change the system. So he decided to change his son instead. Mr. Lee admits that he knew his son would turn into a monster, but he preferred that scenario over getting tortured as a human. To make matters worse, there was no treatment or cure for the virus. Jae-ik and Mr. Lee receive orders to evacuate the city as the zombies intercept the building while Mr. Lee watches and smiles, knowing exactly what's bound to happen next. He gets bitten by the undead as Jae-ik tries to rescue him, hoping to figure out how to stop the new epidemic. But Mr. Lee only instructs him to find his laptop in the school lab now that his fate has been sealed and his turning is bound to happen any second now. Fortunately, Jae-ik is able to leave the building safely and finds another uninfected cop and tells him about the laptop, just in case Jae-ik dies. The sun finally rises as we hit day 2 of the zombie pandemic, and as you might imagine, the students grow desperate for rescue. The group in the bathroom decides to head out as the girl from archery class, Ha-ri, goes on a search for her younger brother while the others follow. We cut back to the two kids on the roofs. There, Min Yoon-ji decides to go on a search for his tormentor after finding out the video of her naked body was scheduled to be posted online unless Chul-soo paid Wee Nam a certain amount of money at a certain time. But, you know, Considering there's a zombie apocalypse going on in the school, letting him to stop the video from going live is simply not possible. Seeing as the video is going to get published either way, Min Yoon-ji leaves the roof and walks down the stairs into the school to search and destroy her classmates' phones that were conveniently confiscated by the institution before the outbreak even began. Sure, half the school turned into zombies now, and the rest are hiding to avoid getting bitten. I don't think students will be too interested to risk their lives only to check what's new on social media. Anyway, Min Yoon-ji gets obviously bitten, and that is the end of her. Or is it? Later on, Cham-san and Soo-hyuk also leave their haven in hopes of finding a phone to call the police, but much to their surprise, they find a yet unturned Min Yoon-ji smashing up phones. Seems like her will to avoid her video from getting spread was much stronger than the virus itself, huh? Cham-san manages to snatch up one while Soo-hyuk fights the undead, which ultimately gets them separated. We now make a quick visit over to the paramedics, who are being told that a helicopter is waiting for them. They hurry upstairs, encountering absolute zombie madness upon leaving the room, but make it out okay. While running from the zombies, Chung-san finds Wee-nam and the principal in a room as the bully ties the principal up and prepares to kill him. In an effort to protect the principal, Chung-san pulls out the phone and records him. Wee-nam doesn't care though, killing him anyway as he chases and throws the knife at Chung-san's back. Episode 5. Refugees who have evacuated from Yosan get rejected each corner they turn, with protesters rallying up to keep them from entering their city. After finally escaping the violence of Yosan, they encounter angry citizens throwing eggs and all sorts of things to deny the refugees entry. Soo-hyuk returns to the classroom group, but without Chung-san, who is currently running away from the psychotic Wee-nam, whose knife failed to stab him. This begins a brief cat-and-mouse chase between the two, who land themselves in a library filled with zombies. Wee-nam and Cham-san have a bit of a power struggle where the bully appears to be the clear victor. That is until Chung-san stabs him in the eye with the phone, throwing Wee-nam to the zombies as the bully swears revenge while the undead gnaw at him mercilessly while he escapes. The bathroom gang have finally left the toilets as Ha-ri throws arrows to every zombie she sees. They find a secluded room with a computer and they quickly turn to social media for help. But as it turns out, Korea has declared martial law and has banned all communications, internet or otherwise, from Hyeosan to keep news and rumors about the virus from spreading. We head on over to a classroom group who are stressed over Chung-san's disappearance, especially An-jo, who is trying to devise a plan to get him back. She asks Jum-young about some drones that might be available to them at the science lab to help them find Cham-san. The group agrees that it would be advantageous to have a drone with them, which is more than enough confirmation for An-jo to find the drone with the company of Jun-young, who agrees to tag along. Now we follow Jae-ik and his junior cop Ho-chil, trying to escape the zombies surrounding the streets in Hyeosan. As they run away from the undead, the two men enter an apparently empty restaurant, but find the girl that had her baby back in episode 3. You see, when she saw what had become of the city, she returned for her baby and locked herself in Cham-san's mom's diner. But being that she had already been bitten and knew that was going to turn, she tied herself up to avoid harming the infants. But two policemen find the baby just fine and look for some milk to calm the hungered bound. Back in the school, An-jo and Jun-young manage to bring back the drone to their haven and get it up in the air to find Chung-san. However, upon flying the drone and realizing that everyone has turned, the little bit of hope they had left quickly diminishes. All the while, the group in the bathroom head on over to the archery training center in order to find more arrows and easily move around the school. They jump out the windows while the other group's drone is closely behind them. Unfortunately, the students in the classroom couldn't quite see the bathroom gang, but they spot the arrows impaled in the zombies as one of the students, Woo Jin, says that his sister, Ha-ri, had archery competition that day and realizes that she might be out there, undead or alive. I guess we're the only ones with that answer, huh? We'll find their drone around the school. They find Chung-san alone in another classroom, but still safe. Seeing as they are unable to communicate with him, they send the drone outside in hopes of finding life out there. But things go bleak once they see that the entire city has turned, including Jimin's parents. Simultaneously, the paramedics and a lady from the National Assembly finally reach a military quarantine zone, where survivors from the breakout are being quarantined. At the end of the episode, we realize that Min Yoon-ji and Wee-nam have survived getting bitten as the virus has evolved to withstand infection with the advantage that zombies no longer seek them out, which Mr. Lee theorized that this could create a new breed of humans. Fueled by rage and thirsty for revenge, Wee-nam only has one goal in mind: find Cham-san and shred him to pieces.